This video would be talking about track record and experience, but not the experience you are used to. It's the experience that actually matters, the experience that affects our life positively. And by I mean you and I, the common man, the oppressed Nigerian, the Nigerian who is not benefiting from the national cake. We who are not part of the elite. This is the kind of experience we need to look at ourselves and say, those who we want to vote for, before they got into power, what have they been doing to benefit the life of the common man? And I'm going to be talking about Omoyele Sowore. So let's start from the beginning. As far back as 1989 up until 1999, Omoyele Sowore fought against the military rule. He fought the likes of Babangida, the likes of Shonikon, the likes of Abdul Salam, the likes of Abacha, until we got the 1999 democracy. There are evidence for this. Everything I'm going to be talking about, there are evidence to back it up. So in 1989, Sowore, alongside other students, fought or pioneered or carried out the anti-SAP struggle, called riots, but I don't want to call it a riot. It was the anti-structural adjustment program. The IMF came up with some devilish policies in order for them to give Nigeria a $120 million loan. One of those conditions was that Nigeria would have to reduce its federal universities to just five. If this had happened, many of our parents or some of those listening to this video would not have been able to go to school. If not for the courageousness of Omoyele Sowore to fight, and as well other persons during that time to stand up against this IMF devilish policy, we may not have been able to have the number of universities we have today. They may have been reduced then to just five. Another thing he did was the Nuga protest, where Omoyele Sowore led about 5,000 students against the military junta. The evidence, the videos are there from as far back as 1998, for which he was arrested, tortured for 2 weeks. So this is one of his achievements, the pro-democracy struggle.
And the center of the student opposition to the government. In the following years, Sowore led dozens of demonstrations in support of democracy, like this one at the National University Games in 1998. What started with chanting outside the gates ended up with the entire student body rallying on the field against the military leadership. At the center of it all was Omoyele Sowore. This was not the kind of message the military welcomed. As the crowds dispersed, Sowore was arrested and imprisoned for 2 weeks.
Let's go to 1992, when Omoyele Sowore became the Lagos University of Lagos SUG president. Then being an SUG president is a big deal. So now what did he achieve for the oppressed Nigerians with his SUG presidency? He was involved in anti-court struggles. There are evidence to show that he fought against courtism, against oppression of the ordinary students back in his day. He also was able to liberate another school SUG, which was being oppressed, the Federal College of, I think, Education, Akoka. Their SUG was disbanded, and after trying all means, they could not do anything to restore their SUG. They went to Omoyele Sowore, who was the then SUG president of University of Lagos, Unilag, and Sowore mobilized students, and they went to this Federal College of Education, and they were able to make the vice chancellor to reaccredit the SUG by holding him to ransom, even when a minister came to the school. The video is there. You can watch and see for yourself.
I met Sowore first time in 1992. That was the early part of the year. While he was in Unilag, I was in the Federal College of Education Technical Akoka. The student unionism in Federal College of Education Akoka has been disbanded around 1986 or 87 thereabouts. Something happened in 1992. We had a provost then who was treating us as if we were primary school students and all that. Sometimes 1993, when we discovered that we could not do it on our own, we have to run to our colleagues in Unilag to see how they can help us. Sowore was the student union president of Unilag then. So we ran to Sowore and we met with them. Then we have no student union, so some of us we just gather and said we ran to them and said, we need your help. So we told him everything and he said, no problem. Lo and behold, on the day of the convocation, so the provost was on the campus, he was ready to receive the minister while he was waiting with the registrar of the college, waiting for the minister to arrive. As the minister was entering, Sowore convoy came thereafter, so he went straight to the provost office before he could even receive the minister. Because even we thought with the military guys around the policemen around the minister that he won't be able to achieve what we wanted to do that day. The minister tried everything he could, but when he saw the firepower from the students of Unilag and the FCT Akoka, they couldn't do anything. I was taken to Unilag, he was taken to the OSU office, that's the president's office, and he said no, he's not going to do anything. He was still thinking, trying to make some contact and all that. But when it dawned on him that he was not going to be part of that convocation, so he signed those agreements, and we have student union in our school now. And some of those treatment that we were getting from them before, it's no more happening again, that we are now in charge and we're in control. So we now felt that what can we do to honor this great man? And we just felt that, okay, let's name the Hall 5 after this great man and call it Sowore Omoyele Hall, just to always remember him.
Now, there are many cases of Sowore, apart from fighting against cultism, but also interceding for the welfare of the students of Unilag. There's a friend of mine whose sister was able to go through the University of Lagos because of Shore's intervention. He actually said his sister had to come home when the school fees was very high, partly because Omoyele Sowore was able to mobilize students to shut down the Unilag when school fees were increased. And as far back as 1992 to 1994, when Sowore was SUG president, this comrade, though very little then, was able to remember that his elder sister, when asked why she came home, she said Sowore and his guys are shut down the school to protest against school fees hike. So let's move on from the SUG days. Let's come down to 2005. Some persons do not realize that as far back as 2005, Omoyele Sowore started a foundation known as the Sowore Foundation, in which over 100 students annually are given scholarships. The evidence are there. So for the past 20 years, he has been giving scholarship to hundreds of students, as well as other way to support businesses, not just in his community, but even those outside of his community. Just that Sowore is not the person who louds philanthropy. So one, the pro-democracy struggle. Two, is SUG days. Three, is philanthropy via Sowore Foundation. So moving on from 2005, let's go to the very next year, 2006. And mind you, every achievement I'm giving are impacts or achievements that have impacted the lives of Nigerians. So you know these are not just him doing things for his own personal benefit. It's for the benefit of the oppressed Nigerian. So in 2006, Sowore founded Sahara Reporters. To show you how important it is, Sahara Reporters is the first online citizens reporting platform, news reporting platform. What this means is that before then, the mainstream media was mainly newspaper, newsprint, or via television. So in order to report in news, it has to be really, really popular, or you have to be able to buy a page in the newspaper or airtime on the screen. But what Sowore was able to do by setting Sahara Reporters is that it was a citizens journalism self-reporting platform whereby people, ordinary Nigerians like you and I, were able to report our stories ourselves via the platform. It gave oppressed Nigerians a voice. For the first time in Nigeria, citizens were able to report their own oppression. And beyond giving citizens a voice, Sowore was also able to use this platform to expose corruption in a grand scale. Nobody, no matter how high, how mighty, was spared from Sahara Reporters' exposés thanks to Sowore. Not just political corruption, but also corruption in or oppression in the religious sector, even in the business sector, traditional sector, wherever you can think about it. Sowore was like or Sahara Reporters was like the conscience of the nation. And you can imagine the amount of guts it takes to do this, the amount of enemies he earned for himself across various levels, not just in one part of society, political, religious, like I said earlier, and also even in businesses. So 2017, Sowore was able to get funding and via a grant And the purpose of this grant, I'll put the details there, is to set up what we know as the Civic Media Lab. Civic Media Lab is intended as a platform where Sahara reporters and Sowore would be able to use this platform, Civic Media Lab, to train Nigerians on journalism for free. We know that a lot of persons usually say if there are 100 or 1,000 Sowore in this country, Nigeria would not remain the same. The man has actually put action to this word. He has actually tried to make there to be more than one Sowore. In fact, he has tried to build people who are bigger than him. Don't forget that people like Adiola Fayem.
And of course, the biggest shout out to Sahara TV for giving me this platform to come into your homes for the last 6 years. Please give it up for my Oga. Serious, Omoyele Sowore. The man has really tried. This man built a platform for so many people to voice their opinions. And I'm so grateful that I've had this platform on Sahara TV for so long. No one has ever censored what I said on this show. They allow me to roll like I want. So thanks to everybody. And no, I'm not quitting, because I know that some of you will now be like, "Ah, why is she thanking us?" No, I'm not quitting the show. However, due to circumstances beyond my control, this would be my last episode on Sahara TV's platform, which is really sad. It's so sad.
Dr. Damages, Objective Media, right? Shegun Law. The list is endless, and these are just the popular ones. Now, with Civic Media Lab, Sowore was actually able to train at no cost Nigerians to go into journalism so they can also become reporters. He tried to replicate himself in others. Now, when Sowore came back to Nigeria to set up this Civic Media Lab in 2017 with a fund of 200,000 naira, Saraki obtained a court judgment to seize this money. Imagine a money that was meant to be used to help Nigerians, to build Nigerians. But this did not stop Sowore. Sowore went on to also raise funds himself to fund the Civic Media Lab. So he went on to create the Civic Media Lab. There are evidences, there are photos of him, of Civic Media Lab training Nigerians. And not only that, the amount he was proposing as the minimum wage then, in 2019 when he first ran for presidency, which was 100,000 naira, that was the amount the least person working at the Civic Media Lab got as payment. So despite the fact that
And when I started Star Reporters a year ago in a lab in Lagos, I promised that anybody working in that lab will not be paid less than the minimum wage that I'm proposing today. And that's exactly what I did. But you know what? It didn't take more than 2 months after I started when they came after me. They seized the money through a law court in Ilorin. The Senate president seized the money. Of course, I just won the case in the Court of Appeal, and then we're waiting to get that money now. So
fund meant for the Civic Media Lab was seized by Saraki, he was still able to pay a minimum wage or a living wage of 100,000 naira. He was able to keep the Civic Media Lab going up until 2019 when he was arrested and detained by the DSS for starting revolution now. The DSS ended up closing the Civic Media Lab. Can you imagine? Fortunately and unfortunately, though, he was able to win the court case against Saraki. I'll put the details here. So you can find out that the court order initially was illegal, null and void, did not really hold weight. It was just to hamper Sowore, but against all odds, Sowore still went on to set up the Civic Media Lab for Nigerians until the DSS closed it in 2019. The next example is the Take It Back movement. Now, many persons will say Sowore, when they hear Sowore, they know him as an activist, right? But Sowore knows that this is beyond him. He was able to convene a movement alongside other comrades. He looked at it and said, he can't be the only one or a few comrades reaching out or carrying out this activism. Why not form a movement, a true movement, right, that will fight for the rights of Nigerians? And the Take It Back movement is currently the biggest civil human rights movement in Nigeria. The intervention from the Take It Back movement cannot be quantified. On a daily, we have interventions going on. There are state coordinators, I'll put the details here, for different states um, that are in charge of the Take It Back movement with comrades in these various states in the hundreds and thousands. So take for example the coordinator for Lagos State. I can't count the number of times I've reached out to him when citizens are unlawfully detained by the police or their money being extorted from them. And when you reach out to the state coordinator himself, he goes to the police station to get these comrades released, or reach out to the DPO or whoever needs to be reached out to. And this is thanks to the Take It Back movement. Let's moving on to the next year, which is 2018, in preparation for the 2019 election. Chore, knowing that it was beyond just himself. It was beyond his ambition. It was beyond him becoming president. Him becoming president is not the most important thing. The goal is for Nigeria to be better. And how can this be done? It's by creating a political party that is ideological. If Sowore were only about his ambition, he would have looked for a special purpose vehicle that would give him a million votes or millions of votes so he can become president. But he knows that it requires more than this. Ideology was important. And so Sowore created currently the only existing ideological political party, the African Action Congress, was created in 2018. And this platform is so people oriented, youth oriented. It's there for the oppressed Nigerians. One of the ways you know this is that the forms in the party are next to free. So the forms are not clinched by money bags. So you have young, bright minded, competent Nigerians being able to pick this form, even though they are not money bags. They do not have money they've stolen. They do not have our commonwealth in their pockets. So, for example, currently we have Comrade Shioma Ifemeludike contesting for the Anambra State governorship election. We had Comrade Kunle Ajayi Wiseman who contested for the Ondo State governorship election. Right. We also have a young person who also contested for the Edo State election. The list goes on and on. In Lagos State recently, we had young persons contesting for councillorship position via the AAC. So you can see that this is one thing Chore has done for the oppressed Nigerians. So let's recap. Starting from 1989, his pro-democracy activism against military, his SUG days, Sowore Foundation is philanthropy, Sahara Reporters, Take It Back movement, the African Action Congress. Not to miss out the fact that Sowore was also they call them professor, but he was a lecturer in two universities in the US. Normally, I would not include this because this would sound like a personal achievement. Or what's my business? What's the business of the oppressed Nigerians if he was a lecturer in United States? But the question is, what was he lecturing? What was he teaching? Sowore was actually teaching post-colonial African history. So Sowore, even while lecturing, even though he was a geography student, did his masters, and this is a personal achievement, right? Did his masters in an Ivy League school in the US, Columbia University. But when he wanted to teach, he decided to teach about post-colonial African history. So even when he was outside of Africa, he was still teaching those in the US about Africa. That's why it's never in doubt that Sowore is a Pan-Africanist. Everything he has done, right, points to him being a Pan
So,
Africanist. In order for this
so
video not to be so long, I will be rounding it up with one more of Shore's achievements or track record or experience that is in the interest of Nigerians. It is his intervention, his human rights intervention for Nigerians. Now, I'm not talking about Take It Back movement. That is a movement. I'm talking about Shore's own personal intervention over the years, his own activism that he has single-handedly gotten involved in, not with the movement, right? For example, the NYSC saga, when he intervened in the NYSC girl who was virtually being bullied and being oppressed. Sowore has also personally involved himself in getting people out of prison. In fact, it is widely known that when prisoners even see Sowore, they see hope. And here's a video to show that.
Na Kirikiri una come from. Kirikiri I been now. Say the people wey suppose dey for prison for this country and those who wey dey for government.
But you look familiar, you look like Sowore.
Yeah, na me.
There are many cases of Sowore making interventions like this. Even the police protest that occurred recently that has now led to about 29,000 police officers being promoted. It's thanks to Shore's as well as other comrades' personal involvement in these struggles. If you want to list Shore's struggles for the interest of oppressed Nigerians, we cannot exhaust it. He has a 30 plus years of activism, 30 plus years and counting. So What's the purpose of this video? The purpose of this video is to show to those who say Sowore does not have experience, to show to them that Sowore actually has all the experience needed of a leader in the Nigeria of today. Sowore actually has the track record that is needed to make our lives better. Because what we want in a president is a president who will put the interests of Nigerians first. So even without power, he has always been putting the interest of Nigerians first. So it just stands to reason that he has experience in putting the interest of Nigerians first. He has experience in being pro people. He has experience in being a welfareist, one who is concerned about the welfare of Nigerians. And that is his ideology. He's a welfareist. So it stands to reason that if he gets into power and becomes the president of Nigeria, he's also going to put the welfare of Nigerians first. Unlike those who claim have experience. In Nigeria today, the president was a former senator, a former governor. Look at where his experience has gotten us. The vice president was a former governor. Look at where we are. The Senate president was a former governor. In fact, the former president was a former governor, former head of state, former PTF, I think, chairman. Goodluck Jonathan, who was there before him, was a former governor slash deputy governor. President Obasanjo was a former military head of state. Yaradua was a former governor. If you put all these together, do you still want to go with these same candidates who have experience in making us suffer, who have experience in maintaining the status quo? Or you would want to go with a man who has experience in standing up for the interest of the people? And this is not just about Shore, this is also about you and I. Because when we want to contest for position tomorrow, not presidency, not even governorship, but even House of Assembly, or chairmanship. If we keep saying that Shore needs to get experience, we are going to push this narrative that we also, when we want to contest for maybe even chairmanship, they'll tell us to go and contest for councillorship because we need to get this experience. And this experience they are talking about is not the experience we need. So let's ask ourselves that question. What kind of experience do we really need to move this country forward? See you in the next video.